Hey YouTube, it's been a while. I have been very busy with some personal medical challenges involving Lyme disease, some career changes, career aspirations, and further continuing on with my career in IT and now into cybersecurity. So the cars have kind of taken a little bit of a back burner for the last 6 months to a year. Now, there is good news. As you see, the little black BMW station wagon you have here is the new race car for JN Garage. This is for multiple reasons, and the primary being that I am too emotionally attached to Subaru after spending upwards of $30,000 to $35,000 on it to wad it up into a wall doing time attack or any type of wheel-to-wheel competition. Also, Subarus are extremely expensive to keep reliable on track. Engine rebuilds costing upwards of four, five, six, $10,000 to rebuild. And that is just not sustainable if you want to get seat time and improve yourself as a driver. What is sustainable are $500 to $1,000 M54 B30 engines, the 3-liter engine that is found in every 530i, 330i, and BMW X5 in the mid to the early 2000s. So this is going to be the new race car and track car. We will still do occasional track days in the Subaru in the future, but that vehicle is due for a large mechanical overhaul, and I'm currently lining up a buyer to buy the S204 EJ207 out of it, so it's going to start completely fresh over with a completely new engine, new gearbox, new differential, and all new running gear. So those are two of the very large projects we have coming over the next year or two. I'm not quite sure when it will be done, but there will be progress made on that. But now that that is out of the way, we are going to move on to further fleet updates. So, first thing on the table for 2023 is going to be finally installing the PRS quick steering rack into the Subaru. It's been sitting in my basement collecting dust for a year and a half now, and that's pretty much the last part on the Subaru that is OEM from 2003 when it was manufactured. And that is a very tired steering rack with, I believe, over 172,000 miles on it, 15 to 20 track days probably, and just a lot of abuse. And it's honestly impressive that it has lasted this long and hasn't spit its guts out all over I-75 or all over Gingerman. So that's due for some maintenance and some upgrades, and that'll kind of be the kickoff to the overall mechanical rejuvenation of that 20-year-old station wagon being the Subaru. Now next up is the summer daily driver, which is the 5 Series, the E39 Touring. It still needs a considerable amount of parts and work. There is going to be some more suspension overhauls on it, probably new airbags in the rear and subframe bushings, because when those subframe bushings are worn, they transfer a considerable amount of road noise, road feel, vibration, and everything straight from the subframe into your driving experience. And it clunks a little bit, it bumps a little bit, really does not like any type of bumps in the road. So those are the two primary things that are going to be taken care of this spring, along with probably should do a full cooling system overhaul with it and a bunch of other little things. Like it's a 20-year-old 5 Series. It's going to need a considerable amount of work and parts, but it's a pretty easy car to work on. It's all mechanical. The E39 touring community is absolutely phenomenal. There are DIY guides for anything you can possibly think of. These guys have schematics for every type of wiring diagram imaginable. There's even full step-by-step guides on how to swap an M5 S62 into the car, which I'd love to do in the future, but those engines are getting astronomically expensive, like unobtainium levels, like $5,000 to $7,000 USD for a beaten up, clapped out, abused S62 that needs probably $3,000 to $5,000 worth of service and parts thrown at it. And even then, it's still a used engine. So if one falls on my lap, cool. If not, it'll stay M54 until either the engine or the gearbox explodes, and then we'll go from there. Next up on the fleet is the reliable and somewhat EPA questionable Volkswagen Touareg TDI. This vehicle's been absolutely phenomenal for the last 3 years for me. It's done nothing but tow my shitboxes around all over Michigan, drive to Chicago and back in comfort, and get 30 miles of the gallon on the highway, which is pretty awesome. Unfortunately, it is due for some service. It needs front brakes, it needs a brake fluid flush. The 10-year AGM battery that Volkswagen used on it also needs replaced. So I'm not sure if I'm going to do all of that myself, probably do the brakes myself, but I will likely have the battery replaced by a local independent shop because they have been extremely good to me and they love these vehicles. They're phenomenal tow vehicles. I can't say anything better about these Touaregs. Any of these 3-liter diesel SUVs from Volkswagen Audi Group, be it a Q7, a Porsche Cayenne, or a Touareg TDI, are just awesome tow vehicles. Sure, if things do break on them, they are expensive to replace, as is any other luxury SUV that was $60,000 to $70,000 when it was new. But it's very hard to find a vehicle that does everything that it does while also being able to tow nearly 8,000 pounds. Do you want to get 30 miles of the gallon while cruising up to your parents' house? Sure, it does that. Do you want to drive 4 friends around who are all 6'2", 6'3" comfortably? It does that. It is a fantastic vehicle. So good, in fact, that I had my dad drive it, and then he went out the next month and bought himself a 2014 TDI Touareg. So it's just been a great vehicle. I really, really love this thing, and the only thing I would replace it with would be like a 2016 TDI Touareg Q7 or Cayenne TDI. I really, really like it. Now, I was looking at stupid things such as an AMG wagon or a Sequoia TRD, but those are all $60,000 to $70,000 and just way, way too much money for someone who also has 3 other project cars going on. So the TDIs are staying for the time being, and they will continue to be loved and driven around and maintained. So that takes us to the newest addition in the fleet of terrible station wagons, and that is the 2000 E46 wagon. Now you're like, oh, Joey, why are you buying another station wagon? You already have 2 other ones that basically do everything that this car would do. Kind of. This car's purpose is purely going to be a road course car and a track car, and something that I can just get endless amount of seat time in that costs substantially less than the Subaru to run and drive. And its parts are comically cheap compared to Subaru. I can get an entire brake kit, brake rotors, brake pads, brake calipers for less than the cost of a full set of Brembo track pads from Performance Friction. So an entire braking kit for this car and to overhaul everything is under $500, which is insane. And that's all brand new ATE, OEM, or OEM manufacturers from FCP Europe, which is awesome. It is a phenomenally cheap car to maintain and to drive. The great part about that is that there's also a series from NASA and SCCA called Spec E46, where they race these E46s very competitively, and they lay down very, very good lap times for the cost of entry. So I will be leveraging that parts list substantially. The end goal for this car is to be competing in Grid Life Touring Cup in 2024, 2025 sometime. I don't really have a hard timeline on it. Whenever it gets running and gets working, cool. Until then, it can just sit under a car cover at my parents' farm or in my backyard. I really don't care. It's going to be a very, very long process. There's going to be a lot of work that needs done on the vehicle that will all, of course, be documented in the ever-ending financial suffering that you know and love here. The short-term goal for the E46, though, is to get it back running under its own power. And to do that, we are going to leverage an M54 B30 3-liter inline-6, which is very similar to the engine that is in the 39. It just adds another half a liter. And they are astonishingly reliable for a BMW engine, and they just keep going and going. And BMW made hundreds of thousands of them. They're in every X3, X5, 530i, 330i. So there's tons of engines to use, and they're very, very cheap. They're $500 to $1,000. So that's fantastic. Now, another problem is I have very large feet, being a 6'3" village idiot. I have size 14 shoes, so heel towing is very difficult. We're going to get around that by installing a ZF 8HP50 behind the 3-liter M54. Now, this is going to be done by utilizing HTG Tuning's TCU controller. And I'm very lucky that Seems Legit Garage is very close, and Mike and the guys there are really interested in this project, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So the end goal is by 2024 to have this vehicle driving with a ZF8 HP in it, which would be really, really cool, and that would allow me to turn tons and tons and tons of laps, and your consumables would eventually just be brake pads, tires, and flushing brake fluid occasionally, and just keep putting 93 octane into it. And these engines and gearboxes combined are very, very reliable. There are possibly some issues with the TCU integration, but we'll cross those as they go. You can make between 220 and 250 wheel horsepower on these 3-liter inline sixes, which is pretty much perfect for competing in Grid Life Touring Cup. And I can actually fit pretty comfortably in the E46, which is even better because it's going to have a cage eventually for safety, along with fire suppression systems and all sorts of other motorsport safety that you would expect from any type of racing series. So the long-term plan on that is just, it's going to be a race car and going to actually have a race car, but it's going to be cheap to run comparatively to, say, a BMW M3 or a Subaru or a Corvette. And that's the goal, is just to have cheap, reliable fun that I can go out and turn laps anywhere in the country with my dad and do it for a pretty reasonable budget. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and expect more videos coming now that I have more time to dedicate to them. I have sorted out my medical issues for the most part, and I need to continue to lose weight to fit into whatever race seat I end up putting in the E46. So expect a video on the E39 coming in the next couple weeks here as well, as I have gotten it to be a pretty reliable, pretty comfortable summer cruiser, and it's going to be my summer daily driver for the foreseeable future. Once again, thank you for watching, and sorry it's been so long since I made a video.